Welcome to Oyster Water Study Guides with me, Donovan Mulberry. I'm an educational legend who's here to try and help you improve your grades. These study guides might even help you get your hands on one of those wonderful sounding A-star grades. Or as they're now known, 9. So let's get started. Honestly, 9. Whoever came up with that's a right idiot. Right then, so today we're looking at a poem called London, which is why I'm taking a nice stroll along the River Thames, which is in London. Now this poem was written by a bloke called William Blake. A lot of people thought he was completely insane because he claimed that famous dead people often visited him in the form of ghostly visions.
I am famous poet William Blake. Oh, hello, Tupac.
Man, you got some serious issues, homie.
Let's start off with the relevance of the title, London. Now, Blake plays a trick on us by keeping it so simple and bold, and that trick's to do with word association. Now, if I said to you, horrible, rotten dump, what would you think of? I'd think of my bedsit, or maybe Lady Gaga's wardrobe. I definitely wouldn't think of London. And most people associate London with being a really powerful modern city, a really cool and trendy kind of place where all coolest and trendiest people like me hang out. I am really, really trendy and cool. Think of how many banging pop tunes you'll know that feature London or talk about other cool cities from around the world.
Living it up all around the world. Milan to Miami, London to Rome, New York, Tokyo, and Paris to Wigan.
I love that song. So, the title London makes us think of glitz and glamour, but then Blake slaps us in the face because the London he actually presents is proper nasty, well grim, and totes terrorballs. You see, the poem isn't set in the posh parts of London, it's set in the shadier, much grimmer, nasty parts, the slums.
The ghetto.
Yes, you could say that. Thank you very much, Tupac. It's easy for rich people to ignore the poor, turn a blind eye, but Blake wanted us to realise that it was the rich and powerful that were keeping the poor poor. They were allowing the suffering to continue. And if things carried on in that way, then it wouldn't be long before the whole city ended up down low. So London wasn't all glitzy and great, in fact it was pretty chuffing terrible, and Blake wanted us to think this the next time that we thought of the word London, hence the title, London. So what's the meaning of the poem? Well, on first glance it's pretty easy really. The narrator is having a wander through London, and basically everything's totally cack. Using first-person narration, it tells us how everyone he sees seems to be weak and miserable.
Oh, you!
He hears men yelling out.
I hate London, it's full of rats.
Poor little kids are crying and wailing and basically pooing themselves in fear.
This place scares me. I'm basically pooing myself in fear.
Prozzies, or prostitutes, or prostituta, if you want to pretend to be Italian, are shouting at their newborn babies because they won't stop crying.
Shut it, you little toe rag. How's Mummy supposed to sell her oranges with you wailing all the time? Now just drink your rum and shut up.
You're a terrible mother.
And that's it. Easy. London is a great big pool. Don't you write pool in your exam. Think of something more appropriate, like plop house. Let's delve a little deeper into the poem's meaning. We've got crying, misery, weakness, illness, poverty, screaming kids, shouting blokes, yelling prostituta, and a whole heap of other nastiness. Why did you write such a grim poem, Blake?
I wanted the world to see who was responsible for the poverty and the misery and the sickness.
Of course. And who was responsible?
The establishment.
Oh, right. What is it with you poets and hating the establishment? So there you have it. Blake wrote this play to suggest that the king, the government and the church were all contributing to the continued misery of the weak and poor. To be honest, Blake absolutely hated the church and the king.
Are you from the church? Because if you are, I'll jab you with a pen.
You madhead. Let's take a look at how this anti-establishment feeling comes through the text. Firstly, in lines 1 and 2, there's the repetition of the word chartered. Blake?
The word chartered suggests a sense of order. Chartered means defined and legally delineated, all neat like in a neat and tidy little map. Who do you think is responsible for chartering things?
I don't know. Oh wait, is it Louis van Gaal?
It's the establishment again, you idiot! I'm going to headbutt your face off.
Cool your jets.
The establishment are responsible for the streets, but the streets are falling apart with misery, suffering, and prostitution.
So the word chartered suggests order and structure, which is just what the leaders want. But actually on street level, everything's falling apart.
Indeed. Down with the church! Down with the king!
Yeah. Why don't you go have a lie down and a little glass of milk or something? Blake's hatred of the church is important, and in line 9 he blames the crying of poor chimney sweepers on the church. Chimney sweepers were just kids who were looked after by the church. They were supposed to take care of them, but instead they just shoved these kids into chimneys like sausages into a keyhole. In lines 9 and 10, Blake practically accuses the church of being proper horrible for carrying out this child slavery and child cruelty through these chimney sweepers, who are all black because they're covered in soot. But similarly, Blake tells us that the church is actually blackening, and that's not to do with soot. That's actually a metaphor suggesting that the church is getting more and more evil. Stupid, wrinkly old church dudes. What were they playing at?
Ah, come on now. Give us a chance. At least let poor old Churchy here defend itself. We tried our best to look after them kids, honest, and we thought that sending them into chimneys, it were chimney sweeping could be a very rewarding job.
Put a gerbil in it, you stupid wrinkly old church dude. Being a chimney sweeper was awful, and this short clip will explain why.
Do you want an enjoyable and rewarding job? Are you aged between 5 to 10 years old? Are you eager to work almost every hour of every day and for almost no money at all? If yes, then chimney sweeping is the job for you. How much fun will you have twisting, contorting and jamming your tiny child's body into impossibly cramped and pitch black chimneys? Your work as a chimney sweep will stunt your growth and give you stylish and crippling physical deformities. That looks great! Do you ever think that living to be an adult sounds like a tedious and pesky annoyance? Then fear not. As a chimney sweep, that delicious tasting toxic soot you've been breathing in day after day will give you terminal cancer. You won't make it past 17. So what are you waiting for? Become a chimney sweep today.
Warning, chimney sweeps are frequently burnt to death.
Outrageous. On lines 11 and 12, Blake takes a massive swipe at the king. He says that blood is running down the palace walls, which is a metaphor. Obviously. Do you know what'd go really nice with this? Blood. Smeared everywhere. Or maybe a bit of brain. So it seems that Blake is actually suggesting that the king is responsible for causing violence and even death. Really? What the giraffe's toenail is going on? To help put things in perspective, we need to think about the poem's context. When London was published in 1794, over the sea, France was being absolutely knackered by the French Revolution. All the common folk were rebelling against the French king, and it were all kicking off.
Our king smells like camembert.
Camembert, oui.
We should chop his head off.
Chop his head off, oui.
The French king, Louis XVI. You what? It's Roman numerals. Well, what is it then? 16th? Well, why don't we just say that? Stupid. The French king, Louis XVI, was eventually beheaded for treason. And in England, the king, King George III, what? Roman numerals again? George III was scared that people wanted to kick him out and chop his head off too.
I fear my bonds, it's for the chop. One is pooping oneself.
King George III started to clamp down on civil disobedience to try and keep everyone in line. This meant that soldiers had to carry out acts of violence against British people in the name of the king. You can't blame the soldiers, they were just following their orders. But Blake suggests that the soldiers actually hated having to do stuff like that, and that's why in the poem the hapless soldier is sighing.
Oh, I ain't kicking people's heads in.
As this went on, things went from bad to worse in London, especially for poorer folk. Blake, I bet you wanted things to kick off over here, didn't you, like it was in France?
Oh, I loved the revolution in France. I wanted it to spread over here to England because I hate the king. Down with the king! Have I told you that I hate the church as well? Down with the church! Down with the king!
Mad as a jar of eels. Anyway, Blake's anti-church and anti-establishment views often landed him in trouble. Now the tone in London is very dark, very negative, and it strongly reflects Blake's anti-church and anti-king and anti-establishment views. Oh, there's so much negative energy in that chunky little head of yours, isn't there, Blakey baby?
Negative energy.
Okay, now it's time to consider rhythm and rhyme. If you read the poem out loud with its A-B rhyme scheme, it sounds like this.
I wander through each charted street near where the charted Thames does flow.
And mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of war.
It's almost childish sounding, like a nursery rhyme. Now, why would Blake have written such a dark poem using such a sing-songy rhyme scheme? Childish rhymes actually emphasise the nastiness of the poem. You see, when something is nasty in something that seems nice or should be nice, then it just seems all the more nasty. Think about evil clowns or demonic dolls. So the sing-songy rhyme scheme over the nasty message actually emphasises the really dark and creepy tone of the poem. Blake's done something cheeky with the rhythm too. Have a look at how many beats are in each line. Some lines have a nice rounded 8 beats, but other lines only have 7 beats, and these 7-syllable lines break the rhythm, so therefore they stand out. You'll need to suggest why these lines might stand out. Line 4 has only 7 syllables, so this line really draws our attention to the idea of seeing weakness and woe. Now, all of the lines in stanza 3 have only 7 syllables, so that lot stands out and really draws our attention to how horrible the church is and the idea that the palace has got blood on the walls.
I really hate the king and the church. I think I might slice them.
Flipping heck. Anyway, prostitute mothers shouting at their crying babies really stands out thanks to the 7-syllable lines in stanza 4. The rhythm is falling apart, much like the city itself. This broken rhythm, courtesy of these 7-syllable lines, really draws attention to how grim things have become in London. Have you noticed how Blake's put loads of sounds into this poem? Actually, that's something that you lot can talk about too. The sounds coming from the kids in the poem are especially interesting. Infants are crying, chimney sweepers are crying, and newborn infants are, yes, crying. Now, apart from this being hilarious, what do you think Blake's trying to get across? It's as if the world is upside down. I mean, children who should be free and happy are here miserable and crying, and happy sounding rhyme schemes are covering dark and nasty messages. It's all messed up. I mean, look at the last line. Marriage. Marriage is about togetherness and families. But here, Blake uses the ghastly image of marriage being like a hearse that's covered in blights and plagues. I tell you what, them blights and plagues, that's a reference to sexually transmitted infections being spread by prostituta. Blake's telling us that everything is upside down and it's only getting worse. Things have got to change. Because if they don't change, then what's going to end up happening to London? By the end of the poem, the reader feels horrified and trapped. That's to do with the sense of claustrophobia that Blake's managed to put into this poem. It's all to do with the poem's form. London is a short poem with just 4 stanzas, each with only 4 lines. As we know, the lines are pretty short too, featuring only 7 or 8 syllables apiece. It's crammed full of horrible sounds and horrible images, and it's really short, and there's a lot of repetition. Now, this repetition and the shortness of the poem kind of creates a sense of claustrophobia. It's as if you're running through a maze of cobbled streets and everywhere you turn you see either a crying child, or a bloody soldier, or a dirty prophet. It's horrible. I mean, take a look at the second stanza. There, Blake's used a language device called anaphora.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields. shall fight in Lidl. We shall fight in Aldi. We shall fight behind Gallabringo.
Using anaphora, Blake tells us that he sees misery and suffering in every person he sees in London. In every is repeated 4 times in 3 lines, so Blake couldn't be hammering it home any harder. London is knackered. And that's about it. Other things you might consider include the various images of death and disease. Lovely. And also, what about the line about mind-forged manacles? It again ties in with the idea of society breaking down, with everybody being chained metaphorically or restrained metaphorically by the cruelty from the king and the church.
Down with the church! Down with the king!
Yeah, we've heard it all before, Blake. Here, has anybody ever referred to you as Justin Timberlake? Or what about Blake IPs?
I will set you on fire for such stupid comparisons!
Comparisons? Oh, I forgot about that. Thank you very much, William Blake. IPs.
Sure.
Now you'll need to have a think about which of the other poems in the cluster you'd like to compare London to. Why don't you have a natter about that, and I'll throw in some more hints and tips as well, 'cause I'm a rate legend.
In London, our hapless soldier is sighing because he's depressed at having to carry out terrible orders in the name of the king. More dodgy orders given in the charge of the Light Brigade when soldiers with only swords are told to attack some cannons. Obviously, it don't end very well. Even though the orders were stupid, these soldiers charged in without question, and as a result they were seen as incredibly brave heroes. Is the soldier in London a hero? Yeah, he don't like his orders, but he just seems to mope and sigh about it. One soldier who refuses to follow orders is the fighter pilot in Kamikaze, who chooses not to fly his suicide mission. Japanese leader Emperor Hirohito ordered loads of Japanese soldiers to kill themselves in this way, and if the soldiers refused, then they were seen as traitors.
For Japan, you must kill yourself.
But I don't want to.
If you don't, everybody will hate you and think you smell.
Oh, poopy.
You smell.
So soldiers following orders and suffering might help you with your comparisons, and so too might the idea of losing your city. In London, the narrator feels as though he's losing his city because everything's falling apart. Because of the cruelty of the king and the church, everything's going to hell. The narrator in The Emigre also feels as though she's lost her city because she had to move away when she was really little. And in the meantime, her home city has ended up knackered because of various different things, so all she's got left is her childhood memories of the city she lost.
Proper quality. Now all that's left for me to say is, if you still think that you don't know a note, pay attention to these top 3 quotes. It is not the end of a hula pipe!